Hello, and welcome to this instructional design tutorial. Today we'll be looking at designing topics that accomplish learning objectives and that engage students. My name is Rhonda Bittner, and I teach technical writing here at Brookhaven College. When I first began teaching, I struggled with creating assignments. I spent hours agonizing over how best to create them. Finally, I came up with a pattern I thought was pretty good, and I stuck with it. Mostly. I never really considered student engagement. I never really considered learning styles. And I never considered creating a context for the existence of my assignments. And because I kept adding things to my assignments, they became so long and laborious that even I fell asleep reading them. My students turned in assignments that were disparate in nature, all over the place. I found myself asking some pretty hard questions. One, were my students reading my instructions? Two, were they reading the ancillary materials? Were they looking at my rubrics? And finally, were they even looking at the examples I posted? I also began doubting my own abilities. After some intense reflection, I realized there was a major flaw in my design process. And this is what it was. I was creating assignments when I should have been designing learning experiences. That's a powerful moment. Not only that, but I should have been designing learning experiences that better connected with my students' learning styles and abilities. And I should have been creating a context to validate the existence of my assignments and the work my students were being asked to put into them. My text-heavy assignments were neglecting my oral, visual, and kinetic learners. And I was also teaching to the middle without much thought for the other two sections of the room. My students weren't failing my assignments. I was failing my students with my assignments. That is when I started listening to my students. Here's some of what they had to say. They said things like, "I do not understand what you want," or "I do not understand the relevance of this assignment." "I'm just not that smart," or "I just don't learn like that." And finally, "I did the best I could with the instructions you gave me." Now that gave me pause. After taking some much needed theory and design courses, here's what I learned. One, I realized that my assignments and all the materials that go with them should be organized in a way that leads students through the material in a clear and logical manner. This would prevent students from getting lost along the way. Two, I needed to create a blueprint, and each assignment should adhere to that blueprint. This would lead to less confusion and more consistency. I also learned how to add components that would address multiple learner styles and abilities. This would lead to better learning. And finally, I learned how to provide a context for my assignments by creating topics to support them and the work that my students were doing. In this tutorial, I will share what I learned as a result of some hard analysis of my own teaching and through some intense study in instructional design. We will use a text by William Horton titled E-Learning by Design. Horton is an e-learning consultant who has led the way in instructional design. Here's what you will take away from this tutorial. 1. How to create assignments that accomplish course objectives. 2. How to visually arrange your assignments into topics. 3. How to create a context for your assignments that makes them more meaningful for students. And 4. How to help students see the connections between the different components of a topic. So, let's get started. Instructional design, what is it? Instructional design is the improvement of instruction by analyzing student needs and by creating learning experiences as opposed to creating assignments. This is exactly what I'd been trying to do all along. Today we will be dealing with a specific piece of instructional design. We will be designing topics. These topics will give our assignments a context for existing. So, I've narrowed today's tutorial to include only what we need in order to design a single topic of study, in order to accomplish our objectives and better engage our students. So, what is a topic? A topic is the key building block to accomplishing your course objectives. To me, a topic is a block of activities and materials that I use to impart knowledge and teach a set of necessary skills. Each topic in my courses follow the same familiar pattern or blueprint. In other words, all of my topics are consistent in design and delivery. Each topic is fully self-contained, meaning that I can change the order of my topics within my course without much fuss. Each topic accomplishes a single learning objective, but it may accomplish one or more prerequisite objectives. A topic is made up of the following: the assignment, plus all of the tasks or activities associated with that assignment, plus all of the ancillary materials required to complete those tasks and that assignment, plus a test by which students and teachers can gauge student success in acquiring the necessary knowledge and skills. Let's see where topics fit in the hierarchy of your course. Let's look at the key terms here. We have curricula, all the courses in a program of study your student needs in order to earn a specific degree. So the whole AA or the whole AS package, that's the curricula. Courses, of course, those individual courses that students take to fulfill that curriculum of study. Lessons are those lessons within our courses. Some of us call them units, or we may call them modules. Activities, these are the tasks that must be performed. Media, this is the information piece and the way that that information piece is presented. Where do you think topics fit into this hierarchy of learning? According to Horton, the answer is C, between lessons and activities. Let's explore topics a little further by looking at what Horton refers to as the anatomy of a topic. What makes up the anatomy of a topic? This will be the bulk of our tutorial. The topic is key to both connecting with your students and accomplishing your course goals. Topic components include the following: the title, the introduction, your course objectives and goals, learning activities, and these come in three types: absorb activities, do activities, and connect activities. Timeline, summary, expansion materials, and of course, the test. We're going to look at each of these pieces, but first let's look at an example of a topic. This is an example of a topic blueprint. Now, I created this topic design that I call my blueprint, and I use it for each of my topics. I use some sort of graphic as the banner. Typically, this banner reflects the subject of the topic to orient the student. There's a title, the introduction, the goals and objectives, pre-assignment tasks. I categorize the absorb and do activities as a pre-assignment task to let students know that they have to do these before the assignment. I also rename the do activity as complete tasks, so students know that these are tasks that must be completed before the actual assignment. I categorize the connect component under or as the assignment because students know what an assignment is. Now, they also know that this is where everything connects. I include a timeline for student reference in my blueprint, but that is not part of the original component in the Horton text. There's a summary of information, and there's expansion or supplemental materials. Now, topics, of course, may vary, but the components addressed in this tutorial are pretty standard. I personally adapted Horton's components to fit my teaching style and students' needs, and I suggest that you do the same thing. Note that I do not use the test component because I test through the connect component. Now, let's look at each of these standard components individually. Now, the title section, often called the banner or headline, provides a telling title that reveals what the topic is about. This may seem like a small piece of the topic, but it is the first thing that students notice. According to Horton, the title announces the topic to the world and makes promises on its behalf. It tells the students, if you take this topic, you will gain the knowledge and skills that the title implies. So, what else should you know about the title? How to compose a meaningful title. Titles should be distinct, that is, distinguishable from the titles of other topics, lessons, activities, and components. Titles should be context-free, that is, not dependent on other topics or components to make sense, because each individual topic should be self-contained. They should be understandable. Do not use terminologies that learners will understand only after they complete the topic. They should be scannable, that is, short with important words at the beginning. They should be thematic, what I refer to as a telling title. In other words, students should be able to predict the content by reading the title. They should be motivational. Yes, I said motivational. By reading the title, the learner should be able to recognize what's in it for me. Let's move on to the introduction. Now, the introduction is the learner's invitation into the topic. It explains the topic in some detail and provides a purpose for the topic. It also lists any prerequisite knowledge learners may need. It might even tell the learner the level of difficulty for this particular topic. A good introduction both welcomes and orients the learner. It helps the learner see how the topic relates to other topics in the course. Now, in writing the introduction, look to the objective for guidance. What else should you know about the introduction? How to design a good introduction? Well, introduction should confirm that the learners are in the right location. This applies particularly if learners have more than one avenue by which to reach the topic. An introduction should orient the learners. That is, the intro provides enough of a preview of the topic that learners understand what the topic will do for them. This is also aided by the title, remember. The introduction really sets the context for the rest of the content of the topic. It prepares learners to interpret what they will read, see, and hear in the rest of the topic. And they should motivate a deeper study. Motivate. The introduction provides learners with a reason or reasons to study deeply. Now let's look at the objective piece. We start each topic by designing the objective because the objective figures into literally every design decision. Objectives state the goals and/or learning objectives, that knowledge and skills piece students will obtain as a result of completing this topic successfully. We want to coax students to aim for these as they complete the tasks and assignments. Provided is an objective formula in 3 parts. We want to teach blank to blank who blank. All right, the first blank, the first slot states what we want to teach. It's the intent. And this is where we use our verbs. The second slot states the group of people, the learners that we are addressing. And the learners are probably the same for an entire course. The third slot states the prerequisites that's necessary to accomplish the intent, the skills, the knowledge, the attitude that these students already possess. Let's look at the next section. These are the absorb activities and the do activities. I put them under pre-assignment tasks because these are the tasks that prepare learners to complete the assignments in the connect component of the topic. According to Horton, a topic requires a combination of absorb, do, and connect activities in order to accomplish an objective, and must include a test to determine whether that objective has been met and to what extent. Okay. Absorb activities or absorb information. These are activities that provide information to learners that they must take in, process, and retain for use in the complete and connect areas. Learners will use this information to complete the tasks and assignments of the topic. These activities may include reading material, thinking about the material, viewing videos, listening to videos or podcasts. These tasks require mental activity. They include presentations, readings, even stories by teachers, and field trips. Now, the complete tasks, or the do activities, as Horton describes them, are meant to transform the information that learners received in the absorb section into new knowledge and skills. This section may consist of practice, discovery, analysis, games and simulation, and reflection to deepen student learning. The connect activities are the application piece of the topic. I call these the deliverables. These are the assignments that students are going to deliver to you to be assessed. Now, these connect activities or provide information on the assignments for this topic. This section tells students how many and what kind of deliverables they will complete. Connect activities are assignments that allow students to actually apply the knowledge that they gained in the absorb and do sections to areas of their lives and the work that they do now or hope to do in the future. So the connect activities are the application piece. According to Horton, connect activities link learning to life, work, and future learning. Common types of connect activities include ponder activities, questioning activities, stories by learners, job aids, research activities, and original work. The summary component of the topic provides, in chronological order, a summary of the unit materials, the tasks, the goals, and the assignments. Horton suggests that we include a real summary that states the key points the learner should know before ending the topic. This is not merely a restatement of the objectives. In order to write a good summary, our summaries need to do three things. They need to give the learner another chance to learn, give the learner another chance to comprehend the task, and help the learner verify that they acquired the necessary knowledge. Expansion materials are supplemental materials, and a supplement is something that completes, reinforces, or expands an item when added to it. I like to urge my students not to look upon supplemental materials as optional, but while not as necessary to complete the assignment as the other components, they do attempt to extend their knowledge of the topic for a greater understanding. Encourage students to be enlightened. I include supplemental materials through hyperlinks. That just makes it easier for learners to read related topics and materials. This is a plus for students who may need some refresher information before beginning the topic. If their prerequisite knowledge has a gap in it. It also is a plus for students who could advance beyond the given task and who might get bored without an opportunity for advancement beyond the topic as presented. So this is where you address the other two parts of the room. Because we are testing whether or not the learner met the objective of the topic, we must test to the objective. We need to know whether or not the student got it, that is, the knowledge targeted in the topic, and whether or not they can use it in the future, those skills required to repeat the task or perform in the scenario. Tests do not have to be boring or monotonous. Try interactive tests like the one above. Click the Let's Play speed match to test your knowledge of the components of a topic. So, how do we design components logically? Horton provides us a step-by-step design component. Number one, start by defining your objective because everything begins with your objective. 2, craft the title. 3, design the test. 4, create the learning activities. 5, design the introduction. 6, for special needs or exceptional needs, decide on the supplemental links. Some special notes before we close. Remember that topics are fully self-contained. Horton uses recipe cards as a metaphor. Each recipe card is self-contained and complete. It contains all the information needed to prepare one dish. It does not mix too many different types of information or stray from the topic. It also follows a consistent format. Imagine throwing a handful of cards into the air and then picking one from the floor. It still works the way it was intended. A second tip is do not create more than you need. You may not even need all these components. Adapt the components you need to fit your teaching style and student needs. Design consistent topics. Topics should be similar in the following ways: visual appearance, navigation schemes, instructional strategies, and testing approaches. Also, use variety in your design: the visual learner, the auditory learner, and the tactile learner. All learn in different ways. Make sure there is something for everyone. the advanced learner, and the learner who needs a little extra information to succeed. Thank you for being a part of this tutorial.